the one and only, the leading man for our USF softball team, Ken Eriksen. Coach, what's going on, buddy? How are you?
All I know is Jalen Brunson and Carl Anthony Towns are the guys right now, right? I'm bringing me back to the Walt Frazier, DeBuscher, Bill Bradley, Willis Reed days right there. I'm excited to see how far the Knicks can go. So we'll see. We'll see.
My uncle would always tell me about how important that team was during that time because there was so, with everything that was going on in the country at that time. I mean, the Knicks brought everybody together because you look at that roster with the backcourt of Frazier and Monroe, and then you have, Bill Bradley goes on to be the freaking senator in New York with the Busher, and then, you have Willis Reed leading the way, and then you have Phil Jackson and the Zen Master. I mean, that team with Red at the helm, I mean, that really was kind of a way to, kind of like bringing the team together.
It really was. You think about what Holtzman did as a coach and to bring in all those guys, but the aspect of it is not one guy was really a superstar coming out of college, right? And then they all had Willis Reed as the foundation behind what was going on, and you had some pretty bright guys. And Bradley went to Princeton, and DeBuscher was, I don't know if people realize that Busher pitched with the White Sox.
Yeah.
Also, right? So you had some really good athletes there. But during that time, in the late 60s, when you had all the things that were going on in the world, not dissimilar to what's happening now, right? But back in that area, you had the Mets won the 69 World Series. Mm-hmm. The Jets went to the Super Bowl, and that's my we're trying, right? That team drives me crazy, but we're trying. And then the Knicks had a phenomenal run. So it was a really good time to be a New York sports fan growing up in that area during that time.
No doubt. Everybody always remembers Willis Reed and those two shots he hits. I remember 36 and 19 in that game because I wore number 10 growing up because Walt Frazier is my dad's favorite player, so that was my guy. Right. As a coach, who influenced you coming up through the ranks, Ken? When you were looking to kind of morph and kind of create your own coaching style, was there anybody that you look back on and said, I want to take piece from this guy, piece from that guy?
Yeah, it was interesting. I had a chance to meet Bobby Valentine when I was in high school, and I thought he did a tremendous job of communicating with the players. He was right on the level. He respected everybody of what was going on. And then you had an aggressive coach in Earl Weaver, when he was with the Orioles, and he played for the 3-run home run, but he had great pitching and great defense. And then you also had guys like Gil Hodges, who was a very, very steady influence on his team to keep them a young team. Back in the 67, 68, 69 season with that team. And he was a real steady type of guy, never got excited, this and that. And so my wife continues to say, like, I can't tell if you're up 10 or down the way your demeanor is on the field. And then to play for Robin Roberts, who was a professional. And always said that, boys, if you want to be treated like a professional, act like a professional. And that always resonated with me. So to be that type of person and to be that type of mentor has always, I hope I attain that at some point. These guys are really, really good.
Yeah, you can definitely tell, man. You're just never get too high, never get too low. Staying even keel. You mentioned those great Baltimore Orioles teams and those 420 game winners that they have. You got yourself a pretty good staff right now with the Bulls. What has worked so well for those ladies in the circle this season?
Well, they're understanding that pitching is like real estate, location, right? And not try to do too much and not try to overthrow the ball, because the way these hitters are nowadays, you're not going to throw the fastball by anybody, right? And so you have to make sure that you're hitting your spots and buy into changing speeds and keeping the hitters off balance. So Belle Sarge's doing a great job of that. Peyton Dixon's done a great job for that for 3 years for us. And now we're having, a young lady by the name of Ann Long as a freshman who's got a really good down ball. So, we're ham and egging it together pretty much so far.
I loved Ann's game against Michigan early on the season. It was a 1-0 loss, but I saw. I mean, how great is that, Ken? Because you and I spoke about this the other day. People forget, like, these are 18 to 22 to 23, 24-year-olds. Everybody expect them to come up with, all these crazy things, and they forget about that. They're still kids. And to see Ann, it was almost like you saw a kid grow in the middle of just 7 innings of a game. When you see a player like that flourish throughout the season, what does that mean to you? Does it give you kind of an idea of like, hey, we're on the right track with this player?
Yeah, and you're hoping that they realize that the coaching staff has confidence in them to put them in those situations to succeed, right? Because so many great players I shouldn't say great, but so many players go to college and they get shelved, for fear factors like this kid can't do it and this and that. But to me, if we're recruiting these players to play against the schedule that we play, put them out there. You got to develop them at some point, and to wait as long as people do to develop players, to me, is ridiculous. You got to get them out there in a fire right away, and I think that lends itself to creating a lot of team chemistry later on down the road. That no matter if you're a senior, junior, sophomore, or freshman, you can answer the bell. But I was very, very proud of what she's done. She put a great game against Louisville. Great game against some other pretty top teams. She's come in relief a few times, shut down Charlotte completely, and shut down FAU when she came in. So, we're really happy with her, and the future looks pretty bright, for Ann.
I love what you said about getting players involved because, for me, when I coached years ago, 8 years, and I always told people and parents, because, parents always, they have their own vision on how the game should go. But I said, if you're on a team, your coach should always try to find a way. I never understood when people rock the same 9 or 10. There's always a way to get somebody a defensive inning. There's always a way to somebody to get an AB somewhere, right? There's always a way. And I've always admired that you'll go to that bench. You'll go pinch runner, courtesy, pinch runner, pinch runner. Like, how important is that to have at least, some of your young players? Hey, you're not going to play maybe a ton in the field, but get ready for your pinch running appearances. How much of that and how they handle that, even it may seem small and trivial to some people on the outside, but am I wrong in saying that if they can do that well, you give them a little more, you give them a little more, and you give them an opportunity?
Well, I think so. Of all the coaches that we talked about already, how many guys are coming off the bench for Holtzman? How many guys are coming off the bench for Earl Weaver? How many guys are coming off the bench for Hodges, right? There was about 14 or 15 core players in those groupings. It wasn't just your 9. And when they felt like they were important, they were able to produce, And so to us, we kind of, I've always said this, right? And people that have watched us play, they took a look at the scorecard and go like, man, that guy runs them in and out. I'm like, right, exactly.
Yeah.
And so if you keep that involved, it's great. Remember Holly Rowe taking a look at our score sheet one time, and she was like, man, look at all these markouts here. I go, hey, I get it. So, but you got to keep them involved.
I love that. And what is it about, and maybe you see it in basketball, but I think softball is probably the number one indicator of this. There was an example a couple of weeks ago where you took Kathy out and you put in Josie, and Josie comes up and hits a home run. Kathy was on the top step the entire time. She was the first person to greet her after she went big fly. There was no I'm upset, feeling bad for myself, go throw my equipment down, go sit at the end of the bench. I don't know, what is it about the women's athletics? I've heard Gino Oriema talk about this too, and about your attitude on the bench. And why is there so much more of an emphasis for the women's sports in college rather than the men's? Because you don't see, you would hope that it would be the same, Ken, but it's not. What is it about the females that's the way college athletics is for them?
I got my first taste of that in my first year of coaching women's athletics. So I just came from baseball, and there was a guy on a team that was really screwing up, and I asked the coach if I could get into him a little bit with some language in front of everybody, and I did. I threw around some F-bombs and flowery language, told him how he was screwing up, going out, and I respected the team and this and that. And we went to BP that day, and he's in the outfield, but nobody's around him because in the guys' game, you get chewed by you're poisoned, right? So now I'm here. I come over to USF, and we had a kid that played center field that was really good, but her priorities weren't in a great spot, right? I asked Coach Deese if I could get into her a little bit, and I did. I didn't use as many F-bombs and not as much flowery language, but the message was the same. Well, I turned around and walked away, and then looked back over my shoulder, and all the girls were around her going, hey, we love you. He's a jerk, right? So I'm not sure what the innate aspects of it is, but I will tell you that that locker room for us has always been very, very tight, and you have to understand that women have to play good to feel good, and men have to feel good to play good, or play good to feel good. So it's like if my wife wakes up crappy in the morning, you go and be crappy all day unless I change that attitude. Me, I can wake up crappy in the morning, go out and win a few games. I come home, I'm feeling good, right? So, it's a different mentality, but it's more about people. And I'll tell you that if you recruit people that respect each other, and I think we've done a pretty good job of that, then you have a chance to be successful. Because if you don't win in the locker room and you don't win in the dugout, you ain't winning on the ball field.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I want to ask you about one of your former players because I think she's been, in my mind, the best USF athlete, at least I've seen in the last decade, and that's Georgina Corrick. What was it like I mean, can you throw out there to hit sometimes? She'd hit a home run when the game won nothing. I go, this girl's from another planet. What was it like to coach her? And it just seemed like as well as she played, the enjoyment that other people had for her success spoke volumes of her character. And it's so great to see her on the TV broadcast with Ryan Urquhart as well. What was it about? She seemed like a really, really special athlete.
She was, and she was humble. She was the one that was going out and getting the bats, between innings while she was pitching. I mean, she had no airs about her, but she had a capacity. And the capacity was not just anticipatory of what was going to happen next, right? But she had a capacity to understand the game right from the get-go. Well-read person, very observant type of person, but it's one of those rare breeds that you can translate the intelligence to the athletic ability. And so for her, every game was a challenge. Every batter she faced was a challenge. Every pitcher she faced was a challenge, and she wanted to accomplish it. But she never got too high and never got too low. And she was an epitome of a player, which we try to teach our players, like, what's the worst thing that could happen to you after a ball game today? Your parents are still going to love you. You're still going to have friends. You're still going to be waking up tomorrow with the sun. And so if she had so much little girl in her also, beside the maturity part of the game, that she enjoyed it. Okay. And she was just all in. She was like coaching a national team player, like the players I coached with Team USA. I mean, she reminded me a lot of that. You only had to tell her once, like the college players, sometimes you have to go 2 or 3 times, but the pro guys, only one time. And then they got it, or they try it, and they wouldn't be feeling bad about not, succeeding right away. They would go and go and go.
What about somebody like Josie Foreman, who, she's in her prime. And then Josie was so young. And I remember somebody coming up to me like, that's a tall task for this young girl to be able to be back there and to catch one of the best pitchers in the country. Yeah. And man, I just thought she handled it with just the utmost class, and she just didn't look overwhelmed. And I know she had some issues and, with injuries and stuff like that, but to see how well she's performed this year, like to see that growth from somebody that was tasked with so much early on to see her taking such a leadership role this year. What is that like, Ken, to see that development for somebody in particular like that?
Well, Josie is a service-oriented type of person to begin with. And so as a catcher, as a receiver, you got to give in pretty much to, like, I'm a suggester of what we're throwing. But George was such a good teacher also, and like, hey, this is my good stuff. This is what I want to do in this situation. And they worked together so well in the bullpen that they were like on the same page the whole time. And that's a rarity right nowadays because of all the people that are using all the signal sets and whatever the deal is. They're just cookie cutters. But those two were like, for the lack of a better terminology, they were a pair. I mean, that was it right there. They knew you didn't have to worry about them. Josie, you go call the ball game. You enjoy call the ball game, right? That's how trustful you were because their intelligence was so good together. And then Josie, she's had some issues, obviously, with some injuries that could have been really devastating, but comes back this year, put her nose to the grindstone and cut out all the noise, and now she's just focused on what I am to be Josie and not worry about what other people expect of me. And that's a big deal. When you can get to that maturity level of cutting out the noise and not worried about what's going on the internet, not what's going on in social media and all those type of things, you can focus on the game. And I think her and Alana Rivera have done a phenomenal job together.
Is that the biggest change you've seen in athletes, let's say the last 10 years? It's just the noise, the social media. And does that affect how you recruit players? Like, how do you take that extra step to go, see how a high school senior is, doing what she does online? Like, does that come into it nowadays?
Oh my gosh, it has to. You really, they're actually putting out the forensics on who they are.
You don't got to dig deep, man. It's everywhere.
No, I can tell you right now, and there's been a couple players that were really big time players that wanted to transfer in the transfer portal and called us and were like, no, you're not going to fit here. It's just not going to happen, because you can't sacrifice 24 for 1. There's no way, and it's not going to happen. So we have, certain mantras that we go by. And I only have one rule on my team, Jay. It's called the don't be stupid rule, right? I mean, if you think that I'm thinking it's going to be stupid, you don't do it. If you think mom and dad are going to think it's stupid, you don't do it, right? And so, we can't see people going out there and embarrassing the team and embarrassing the organization and so forth. There's been a lot of people here, alumni, coaches that have been here a while that have a respect for the game, respect for the university, and we don't want to tarnish any of that. So it's a big deal when it comes together in that recruiting.
Does that take time, Ken, to be able to have that mindset? Because I feel like if you're a young coach going into it and you got to win a little bit, right? So you don't want to sacrifice that. But, if you're a little bit more established, if you've been around, is that easier over time to say, hey, you may be a conference player of the year, you may be a conference pitcher of the year, but that fly will screw up our entire ointment over here. Over time, do you get the benefit of the doubt of being able to make those calls?
I think so. And early on, I was fortunate enough to have support of our administration. We had to throw two kids off the team, two pitchers off the team. We were down to one pitcher. Early on in my career, it was only losing season, I believe, because they weren't with it. And you're just not going to do that. It's just I can't. You don't respect the game. You don't respect the people around you. There's no sense in you being around because you'll bring it down. And as soon as we got rid of those guys, the next year we were back in the NCAA tournament right away because when you have all the girls coming into the office and go, thank you for doing that because, that's the deal right now. That's why we came here. And so sometimes you have to do that. Sometimes you only have to shoot one soldier, right? And everybody else falls in line. And so we've been very, very fortunate over the last, 20, 25 years that the program's gone in a great direction.
36-12-1 this season, 15-5-1 in the conference. That one drives me crazy because I watched that whole freaking game at Wichita. I feel like out of all the games this year, that one game right there is the tie, but that was the microcosm of your season. Mm-hmm. You were down, and you just did not give in. You end up scoring in extras, and just because you had to get the heck out of here, the score reverts to the previous inning. Yeah. What would you say is the identity of your team this year, if you could put a word to it or two?
Relentless, just relentless, and they bought into the fact that we have the most fair game. Baseball and softball have the most fair game that's on the planet because you can't hold the ball. You can't run it into the line 5 times to do the clock. They get 21 outs, baseball get 27. We get 21, baseball get 27, right? So everybody's got an equal shot, and so it doesn't matter. And that game, you're getting goosebumps right now. I mean, we were down 7-2. And I'm looking at the clock, and we got a half an hour before the dead call time, right? And there's 2 out. And I'm going, well, we're definitely going to the airport. And then all of a sudden, a hit, home run, a hit, a walk, another home run. And I'm looking at the clock going, we got to get this done right now. Because if not, we're going back to the next inning and we lose, right?
Yeah. So
we steal a kid, and she was, I don't know, review got her out, but I thought she was safe. But anyway, we got to get the next 3 outs. And so we're rushing to get the 3 outs, and we do. So now we got 7 minutes to go, right? And I'm like, all right, first person up, get a home run. Well, geez, we just single. We scored 3-4 runs, and the clock's running out, and my players are saying, should I get off the base? I go, no, don't disrespect the game. It just it is what it is. We actually stole a tie, out of that, which in the long run I think is going to help us, because you didn't have an L. But just to score 5 and on the road with 2 outs. I mean, against a team that's battling right now, Wichita State, they're pretty good. So our kids got on the airplane that night. It was like we won the World Series. It was phenomenal.
You got a big game coming up against Florida, man. We saw them once before this season, and we know how they can swing it, man. They have some really good players on their team. What's the mindset going into this game against the Gators, knowing what it's going to take to be able to compete against them? And then also, looking at how do you take that one game and, regardless of what the outcome is, kind of reset and get back and get ready to play North Texas this weekend?
Yeah, it's a short week actually. With Easter yesterday, and we head up to Gainesville Wednesday night, turn around, come back home, and the next morning we're catching a flight to Dallas. So, but we've challenged them all year long. We're going to be able to compete with anybody. This as well as I do. Sometimes you play great and scoreboard lies, and you don't get one. Sometimes you play crappy. We had 3 crappy games the last 10 games, and we won all of them. So who knows what's going to happen? All I can tell you is this, is that the mantra of our team is always what's next. And that means, we got the first time practice today in a couple of days. We'll worry about tomorrow. Wednesday night, that's a formidable challenge. There's no question about it. Really, really good team. But that's what you aspire to. And at the same time, it's challenging you that if you get to the postseason, you've already seen it. So the challenges that we have on our schedule is a really good schedule. It's to prepare us to get to the World Series, not just to win a conference tournament, right? So we want to see the best pitching, and that's why we do what we do.
What have you seen as far as the growth USF athletics as a whole, Ken? Because I know you can get into your groove, practice day. I remember those baseball schedules, softball schedules, man. You just get in the groove and head down, practice, game, day off, BP, boom, boom, boom. You could be in your own little world there on the softball side of the complex there. But looking what Michael Kelly's been able to do, Coach Hannes, Coach Jose Fernandez, and it just seems like the tide is rising with the green and gold with USF athletics. As somebody that's been there, what do you see?
From walking across from Zeta Hall to Beta Hall through the sand spurs to get to our old baseball field, the batting cage had ruts and divots in it, the whole deal. So where we are right now compared to 25, 30 years ago is incredible. Where we are right now compared to 10, 15 years ago is incredible. And then now you've got the indoor facility, for football. You got a stadium going up. The lights are on every day here. Everybody's in a positive mode of what's happening. The community has gotten behind the university like never before. So it's a really exciting time. And how many times in the years in the past, Jay, have you heard, they're in a takeoff stage, and that's been the longest takeoff stage I've ever reading about. And to me, we're not actually in a takeoff stage. We're a pretty damn good program. And you've got other conferences really sniffing around right now to see, hey, great academic institution, great area to go play and maybe live, right?
Right.
And an athletic program that is banging on the door. And so, Golish, incredible job of getting us back into the national spotlight of what's happening. Amir did a phenomenal job while he was here with basketball. What a great guy that guy was. And now you've got the excitement of people, like when jobs open up here, that line is out the door. Who wouldn't want to come to the University of South Florida? I think the best person that said so far, when people ask Dania Brooks, like, hey, were you recruited to go elsewhere? She goes, well, why do you want to leave Tampa Bay? And I'm like, I'm right with you. So that's the reason I've been here for so many years. You have opportunities that open up, but man, every time I fly back into Tampa Bay, Jay, I'm like, I live here. Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, it was pretty good.
A little different than Long Island, my brother. A little different.
Well, now, Robert Moses Field 6 in the summertime. That was, it wasn't bad, right?
You got that right. Yeah, I used to play softball at Jones Beach, man.
Jones Beach.
Mosquitoes would kill me, damn. Hey, we're playing a doubleheader at Jones Beach. You're like, oh my God, really? We'd have that off spray on our head. It'd be crazy, man.
If the wind wasn't blowing, you would chow.
You got that right.
If the wind was coming off the water, you're okay.
Mosquitoes bigger than pigeons out there, man. Yeah, it's funny you say that because I say that to a lot of people. I go, I've been saying this for the last 3-4 years. Now's the time to get on the bandwagon for USF if you haven't. But just look at Jose Fernandez and Ken Eriksen. They're just putting their hands up like, we've been here this whole time. We've been trying to tell you. Before I let you go, what's kind of the goal for this season with you, with the girls? And, you're just looking at a team that's played so well this year. How do you make sure that you maintain down the stretch to put yourself in a position to really do some big things come postseason time?
Yeah, we're always in a situation at the end of the year where you've got the run stretch right now. The run stretch is usually against really good teams in your conference coming down to the conference tournament. You're always going to have a team like Florida mixed in the midweek. And then you've got an academic team that's a 3.6 plus GPA team that has finals and papers coming up here in the next 2-3 weeks, right? People forget about that.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you've got not just that, but okay, when school ends, is there a big girl job waiting for me? And when's my job interviews and all those type of things? So how do you manage all that? You manage it by understanding it and making sure that less is more. Okay. You don't give them too much on the practice schedules. You don't give them too much. We've already done that. And so we're prepared for those type of things. And so we kind of ease up a little bit during practice. You're not bang, bang, bang down their throats all the time. And rest and recovery is very important. So hopefully the formula continues to be successful.
Well, whatever you've been doing this year and throughout your career, you've been doing it right, my friend. And as Ken likes to tell everybody, it's always on Long Island, not in Long Island. He is the man. Coach Ken Eriksen, USF softball, thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun. We'll do it again for sure sometime. Best of luck, not just this week, but the rest of the season, my friend. Talk soon.
Thanks, Jay. Appreciate you.
You got it, pal.